over time, people have become disillusioned because they see a certain continuity, a certain sameness within these differences. And that's something that you will see in the political rhetoric of a lot of politicians as well when they come to power. Because when they come to power, they start blaming the previous governments, which means that there is a new style of governance where they are governing without responsibility. So you can say this is sovereignty without responsibility, which means that they are unwilling to take responsibility for the difficulties that people face during their terms. Also, there's a general consensus on the elite nature of the economy, or not only the major political leaders belong to the industrialist class, but if you look at the candidates that they put in each constituency, for example, across Lahore, we'll see that many of the candidates of all mainstream parties belong to the landed elite, to the real estate sector, to the housing sector, which means that this is a stratum, a very small stratum of society, which is not just controlling the economy, but it is also controlling political parties, which means that by the end of the day, the decision making will not be made in discussion with the grassroots workers, the jialas, the supporters of PMLN, or the tigers of PTI. These are people who will be expected to raise slogans in rallies, will be expected to troll for their leaders on social media. But when it comes to decision making, the decision making will be done by a tiny elite which controls these parties. But on the second part of my answer, in which I said, yes, there still is hope, I would like to caution against too much cynicism. Also because I think cynicism is what exists, and the job of any activist or any thinker is to create some kind of a positive vision, of some kind of a way out. It's not, I don't think it's an intellectual task to say that we are in a bad situation. Everybody knows that. Everybody feels it in their bones. Our task is to create some kind of an alternative vision. And the more we're working with people in working class communities who've been ignored, who've been forgotten, who've been exploited, the more response we're getting from them. We have, over the past few weeks, we've done protests for clean water. We've done protests for workers' rights. In the past, we did protests for student rights. These are constituencies that have been ignored over time, and we're getting good response from them. This is not to say that we will become an alternative to the PTI or to PDM in these elections immediately. But I do think if we remain patient, if we keep working hard, we are bringing something new to the table. We are talking about workers' rights, women's rights, student rights, environmental questions, a whole plan against climate change, global warming, education reform. These are things that are not being discussed in the mainstream. And you can see across the world, new political parties are emerging. They're becoming bigger. Right now, as we speak, there are about 1 million protesters in France against Emmanuel Macron's government. So there is discontent growing across the world, and we need to channel it in progressive and positive ways in order to build an alternative. And this is what we hope to do.
Absolutely. So your manifesto is basically about human rights. Your election manifesto, it's very forthright, very straightforward, but at the same time, formidable. And like you're saying, we cannot give up hope. That's the job of an activist. But are you confident? How confident are you that we can get anywhere close to helping people achieve these basic human rights? Because we know that in a country like Pakistan, despite not being negative, it's very difficult to do the right thing. People create hurdles in the way. Sometimes you will just be, thrown out of power if you're trying to do the right thing, because there are a lot of stakeholders for whom the status quo sort of is how they want it to be. They want it to be that way because that suits them.
No, that's true. That if you want to do a politics of transformation, a politics of change, or revolutionary politics, I think you have, in a way, decided to confront some very powerful interest groups in society, because you feel that the only way out of the current scenario is if you can overcome these entrenched groups. So in Pakistan, for example, Dr. Hafiz Pasha has just come out with a report 3 or 4 years ago. It was published by the UNDP. And the report stated that every year in Pakistan, the subsidies being given to elites equals $17.4 billion. These are annual subsidies. So in rupees, that was 2,700 rupees per year. Now, this means we are not a poor country. The people are poor. It is a welfare country for the elites. There's socialism, but only for the rich. A few weeks ago, we had another scandal, which again, nobody in the mainstream spoke about much. The Gymkhana, which is a Gymkhana club, is a club for elites in Lahore. They pay 5,000 rupees in annual taxes. Now, if you compare that to what's happening to working class families who earned 35, 40,000, their rent is 20,000, their Bijli ka bill is now 20, 25,000 rupees per month, which means that people are indebted. In one working class area of Lahore, we found out that 74% of households were under debt. And these people are under debt because they are subsidizing the luxurious lifestyles of a very tiny elite, who are the beneficiaries of loans from the IMF, who create these housing societies who have a very consumption-driven lifestyle, who invest in unproductive sectors like the real estate, and who have properties abroad. And when it comes to repaying the debt, rather than ending the subsidies for this tiny fraction of the population, we have this method of burdening the masses through inflation, through price hike. So in essence, people have to cut down on their food intake, medicine for the elderly, education for their children. People have to sacrifice their desires, their futures, their hopes in order to sustain this elite bonanza. And I think this is an absurd and an extremely grossly unjust way of running a country. And I think without challenging this basic, decadent, parasitical infrastructure, which calls upon ordinary people to sacrifice for the health of the nation, really means the health of the elites, I think we're not going to move forward.
Absolutely. Supreme Court's recent ruling that the Punjab elections be held on May 14 was met with mixed reaction. There's been controversy regarding the 3-member bench giving the verdict as opposed to a larger or full bench as demanded by the government. But earlier today, a bill was tabled in the National Assembly for the release of funds to the Election Commission of Pakistan for holding elections in Punjab. Do you think amid the institutional wrangle, elections in Punjab would be held in May? And is holding multiple elections during the current economic situation a feasible option?
Well, we were contesting in Lahore. I was personally a candidate for PP 159, and we were preparing for elections. We were campaigning on issues of water, clean drinking water, because the water in the area is poisonous. It's really akin to slow poisoning of the people. We were campaigning on jobs for factory workers, free education for children, women's rights, minority rights, and we were prepared. Now, in my opinion, the ideal thing should be that elections should be held on the same day, because if elections are held on different dates, there will be a very serious question of the impartiality of the provincial government when the National Assembly elections are held, because you will have a political government in Punjab and a political government in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa before October. So that concern is there. However, there's no constitutional way around it. So what we're seeing is really a very an incredibly callous attitude of the ruling elites in terms of their inability to create a political consensus. I mean, there's no Bolshevik revolution, there's no French revolution happening, so it's not like they cannot talk. all of them have been close to the state. They all have worked with the establishment. They all are tied through commercial networks, through political networks, through social networks. And yet the inability to talk to each other, to talk across the aisle, is what is costing us this current crisis. And my feeling is that unless there's a political settlement, unless there's some agreement on the rules of the game, no one will accept the results, which means that there will be more anarchy, there will be more of a crisis, which will lead to more economic instability. And the only one who will truly suffer is the common man. I think what this economic instability has cost ordinary people a lot. It will cost them even more unless people can agree upon the rules of the game. And I think both sides have a valid argument. PTI right now is insisting on 90 days as the main theme. However, we know what PTI did when it was in power. It was not known for being upholders of constitutionalism. This is the newfound constitutionalism that PTI are using. And on the other hand, they did benefit from certain Supreme Court decisions, which many legal experts feel were outrageous, especially around the. So I think those are concerns on both sides. Those are valid concerns. There is no legal way out of it. It has to be a political settlement.
Looks like it.